10 Tips to Study Better. According to science, studying is one of those activities where the number of hours of study does not overcome the tactic of focusing on study efficiency. Even science has proven that studying hard for hours on end is detrimental to learning. This is because your ability to remember content has a limit, and this limit is proportionally lower than your ability to study. To increase your efficiency when learning, reduce the time you dedicate to studying and the stress you feel. I quote several tips for you to study better and less, proven by science. But before talking about the tips, help our channel, like this video and share it on your social networks, so that more people learn about how to study efficiently. There are question 10 tips for studying efficiently, according to experts. Tip number 1. Avoid the forgetting curve. Scientists have begun to explore the psychological phenomenon of the forgetting curve. This is an important factor to consider when we want to study. But what is the definition of this forgetting curve? Essentially, it means that when you hear a lecture from a teacher or learn something new for the first time, you are up to 80% more likely to remember what you learned if you simply use the tactic of reviewing the content again in 24 hours. This has the effect of building up over time. After a week of just 5 minutes of reviewing your study material, you will be able to retain 100% of that same information. Psychologists generally agree that this type of strategy, study time slots, where you study and review content 24 hours later and then again in a week, that's the best tactic. To optimize your study time, arrange for the material review break not to be on the day of the test. Tip number 2. Use printed materials. This one goes out to digital file lovers. Tablets, cell phones, and other electronic media are very convenient and portable. However, research shows that traditional print materials such as textbooks and handouts still have advantages when it comes to university studies. While some researchers believe that developing new habits while using digital interfaces can enhance the academic experience, in a comprehensive study, over 90% of students surveyed said they preferred paper versions over digital devices. Well, that's easy to understand, as these devices have a lot of features that can take our focus away. In addition, a psychology professor found that students required more repetition when reading on a computer screen than when referring to print only. Tip number 3. Make a connection. Many experts believe that the difference between students who learn quickly and those who learn late is due to the way in which they learn. Rather than mechanically memorizing things, fast learners connect to ideas. This process, known as contextual learning, is critical and requires each student to customize their own approach to learning, making connections that connect information. For example, when learning something new, try to relate it to some experience of yours or another idea that you know is related to the subject. Tip number 4. Review the subjects before bed. Although this may seem strange at first glance, reviewing before bed helps the brain to record the information in memory. There's a certain sense based on science. This is because the memory consolidation process is better during slow-wave sleep, i.e. a more relaxed state of consciousness. This means that reviewing material before bed can really help the brain retain information. Tip number 5. Do not reread. Remember. A psychologist discussed this learning approach and published a scientific article advising students not to read and reread the contents. According to him, reading and rereading the material can make the student think that he understood the content well, even when he did not really understand it. After that, he advises students to use active recall, in which they close the book and recite everything they can and remember to practice long-term memory. Tip number 6. Stay away from the internet and social media. We often depend on the internet to study, but when you go to read the subjects and do the exercises, try to leave social networks aside, as well as video platforms. If you're close to your cell phone, turn off app notifications to avoid distractions. This will help you to be more focused on your studies. Tip number 7. Changing the content studied. Scientists have proven that it is better to vary the subject when studying than to focus on just one area. However, it is acceptable and even preferable to combine related subject chants with similar ones. For example, don't just memorize another language's vocabulary, but combine it with reading. If you're studying math, put multiple concepts together instead of just one. Tip number 8. Change of scene. Although this may be obvious to some students, it is not forgotten that simple changes in the environment can have a big impact on learning skills. For example, a psychologist noted that changing study locations can improve levels of information retention and attention. So, next time, don't always study in the same place. If you don't have the possibility to leave the house, At least move to a different room. Tip number 9. Take breaks between study moments. Spending several hours studying without a break is not the best strategy. If you engage in this tactic, it won't be productive. Instead, take a few breaks so you don't overwhelm your brain. Use the time cycle technique called Pomodoro. In it, each study cycle has 25 minutes and you will take a 5-minute break between cycles to rest your mind. After 4 consecutive study cycles, you can take a longer break. Take advantage of the breaks to stretch your body, eat something, and relax. Tip number 10. Play the role of a teacher. In addition, research has shown that students are more engaged and instinctively look for ways to memorize and organize when acting as a teacher. If you have the opportunity, try to teach what you've learned to a colleague, even an imaginary colleague. It is important to have the expectation of being a teacher from the moment of learning, because this brings benefits. So, did you like the tips on how to study better? Although difficult, improving your study routine is not impossible. Put these tips into practice and you'll have everything you need to crush your exams and assignments. If you liked this video, share it with your friends on social networks and subscribe to our channel. Here you will always find tips to evolve.